Hello and welcome to Ramsey, a 42-year-old man. Chris Smith here with you today. Today we're going to do a quick book review on the Stephen Graham Jones novel Mongrels, which I have right here from the library. So Stephen Graham Jones, if anybody has been paying attention to my channel, this will sound familiar. He had written the books My Heart is a Chainsaw and Don't Fear the Reaper, two of my favorite books. Love those quite a bit, and so I was really excited to kind of dig into some of his previous work. I've been trying to get some of his older stuff. My library has a few things, but not a lot. And he's got a lot of stuff. He's been writing novels for quite a while. The only good Indians I've read before I started doing the show. I might do a reread so I can talk about that at some point as well. But Mongrels was kind of his next bigger one that I hadn't gotten to yet. So I was very excited when I did a library run with my kids the other day and I saw this sitting on the shelf. I'm like, yeah, I'm grabbing that. And I read through it in a few days. I read the first chapter and it ends on like a gut punch. And I put a little tweet out there, just saying like, man, I just finished the first chapter of this and I was not expecting that. And I got some pretty cool feedback from people being like, oh, you're in for a treat reading this book. And, the author himself actually retweeted and stuff. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, the story, they're right. It was a treat. I did enjoy it quite a bit. It is a different kind of take on the werewolf novel. And just like pretty much everything Stephen Graham Jones does, there's a lot of kind of historical stuff brought in from older slasher movies and horror films and horror literature and stuff that he brings into all the stories. My Heart is a Chainsaw and Don't Fear the Reaper are love letters to the slasher genre completely. This is definitely a love letter to the werewolf mythos, but it takes it its own way. A lot of times it's bringing up the things that you see in movies. It's like, that's BS. That doesn't mean anything. But this part of it is true. And, you'll get those kind of back and forth. So the story follows a family of three. It's a younger boy and his twin aunt and uncle. His mother was also one, so they were actually triplets, but his mother had passed away during childbirth. You'll find out the reason why that is. It has to do with being a werewolf and stuff like that. There's a whole bunch of little cool backstory that they kind of give. Adds a lot to the werewolf mythos, honestly. And they are kind of nomadic living, traveling across the southeast U.S. from town to town, state to state. Can't stay very long because there's always something that happens. They can't really hold down jobs for very long. And they're always kind of running from place to place. And the narrative of it is pretty cool. You got, every other chapter is kind of a progression of this boy's coming of age. He starts off with like 7 years old, and then he's going to like 8 and 9 and 12 and 14, 16. I think by the end of the book, he's 16, maybe going close to 18. He's getting a little bit older by the end of the book. But then every other chapter in between is kind of like little flashbacks to those earlier times, and we get a little bit more of the story that happened back when he was younger in those times. So a lot of times you'll have when he was in Texas, and then there'll be a chapter talking back before that. Then there'll be a chapter where they moved from Texas to Alabama, but then the chapter after that is kind of going back to the time in Texas. It's a lot of back and forth. It's pretty cool. Just an interesting narrative choice to kind of jump back and forth through chapters. I remember it took me a few chapters to realize what was happening. I'm like, wait a second, he was 12 in this chapter. Why is he 8 now? And then I kind of caught on that it was leaping kind of back and forth as you went, which was pretty cool. And the characters are great. The young boy is kind of a good protagonist to follow, but I would say that the uncle character, Darren, the uncle, was by far the star of the book for me. His kind of cavalier attitude about being a werewolf and stuff, it was just a lot of fun. Always drinking a strawberry wine cooler. Gotta love that. But yeah, I love this story quite a bit. I love everything that I've read from Stephen Graham Jones so far. I also, around the same time I was reading this, I caught the audiobook version of his The Last Final Girl on Audible, and that one was also kind of similar to Chainsaw and Don't Fear the Reaper. This almost feels like maybe his preparation for being able to write those, because this is also a love letter to slasher films. This is actually almost written more like a screenplay. Everything that he's talking about is kind of like setting up like POV and the scenery and then the characters and each of the things. I did an audiobook. I don't know if the written book is written out like a screenplay, but it was definitely narrated and sounded a lot like a screenplay as I was listening to it on pretty much a slasher film. Really, it's almost like reading the screenplay for a slasher film. And again, he brings in a lot of his experience in the slasher genre. A lot of like, think of Scream and all the kind of in jokes and meta-ness to it. There's a lot of that in The Last Final Girl. So that one was a lot of fun. This was amazing. Absolutely. Right on par with My Heart is a Chainsaw and Don't Fear the Reaper and The Only Good Indians. I think all 4 of those books are masterpieces. So very, very happy with those. I love every time I tweet something about one of these books. He's very, very active on Twitter. He always catches it and tweets back something. So it's a lot of fun interacting that way and seeing a lot of his fans. The ones that are like, oh man, you're going to be in for a treat when you read this one. That's a lot of fun too. So had a good time with that one, as I always do with Stephen Graham Jones' stuff. I would recommend, if you ever see anything out there with Stephen Graham Jones' names on it, I would snag it up. Give it a shot. You're going to like it. All right, well, with that, I will end. Thank you for listening to me ramble. As always, thank you for watching, and I will talk to you guys again soon. Thank you. Bye.